So UFC 298 just wrapped up, and if you want my opinion on that main event, I've already got a YouTube video about that on my channel right now. But just after that, Dana White went on Instagram from what looks like a room backstage or something like that, and announced the UFC 300 main event. It's Alex Pereira taking on Jamahal Hill for the 205-pound title. And before I get into talking about this and what it could mean and what it could mean for the division and other stuff like that, and obviously the card, I do want to say, although I've been talking down this card for a long time because I don't think it's UFC 300 worthy, and it's definitely not the card that Dana White himself said it would be, and Dana White himself said it would be like 2 or 3 days ago, I'm gonna say this. This is a good main event. This is a main event I'm very happy with. It is a main event that I thought could happen, but then they announced UFC 301 in Brazil, and I thought, you know what, there's no way Alex Pereira is going to headline UFC 300 if he's going to be able to headline UFC 301 in Brazil, and I believe Rio de Janeiro is Alex Pereira's kind of like home city, or maybe it's not. But anyway, I think Alex has a close connection to Rio. I know Pantoja definitely does, so maybe he's involved in the headliner in some way on that card. But to talk about 300, they've announced the main event. It's Pereira versus Hill. I think it's great. Obviously, Alex Pereira is the current undisputed light heavyweight champion, and Jamahal Hill vacated the belt after being injured, and of course, because he vacated the title while being injured, he's been guaranteed the title shot next. So this fight just makes sense. Hill versus Pereira. I like it as a fight. It's a fun fight as it is. Two strikers. There's a lot of people that think Jamahal Hill can beat Alex Pereira. In my opinion, I think Alex Pereira can beat Jamahal Hill. I will be picking Alex Pereira in this matchup most likely, unless I look into something and I see something I don't like in Pereira's game, or I see something that I like in Hill's game and I don't like in Pereira's. My early pick is Pereira. As soon as this fight was kind of announced and rumored, I did think Pereira would be my option to pick. They're both strikers, and I just ultimately think Pereira is the better striker of the two. But I did want to bring up a quote from Alex Pereira that he said, I believe only a couple of weeks ago. He said that when Magomed Ankalaev was kind of asking for a title shot and saying that he deserves a title shot, Alex Pereira said that he would be willing to defend his title twice faster than anyone has ever done in UFC history. Maybe the UFC is actually trying to set up Alex Pereira as the main event of UFC 300, and then have him main event UFC 301 versus Ankalaev. That genuinely could be something that he could do if he is being dead serious about retaining, like, defending the title twice. But I believe these events are only like 3 weeks in between from each other. It depends. It depends on a lot of factors. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not, but I did want to bring it up because I thought that Pereira was going to headline 301 in Brazil. I was obviously wrong because now Pereira is headlining against Jamahal Hill at UFC 300. I'm just waiting for Tapology to add this, but they still haven't yet. So I guess I'll keep cycling through. Obviously, now we've talked about the fight. We know the fight. The way that Dana White was kind of seemingly tentative to announce the fight, because he said that he was going to announce the main event at the UFC 298 post-fight press conference, and because he was going to announce the fight at the UFC 298 post-fight press conference, it kind of inferred that it wasn't going to be a big deal. It wasn't going to be a fight that would be well received by the fans. I'm sure there's probably people out there that don't like this. I haven't actually seen the comments on Dana White's video. There's still obviously going to be people that want him oiled up, because overall, I still do believe it's not the card we were promised. That's all I will say. That's all I'll say. It's not the card that we were promised. It's a good card, don't get me wrong. It's a stacked pay-per-view, don't get me wrong. But it's not as good as we were told it would be. And apparently they're only going to add one more fight to it, aside from Pereira versus Hill. And if they really, really want to sell the card, you know what they could do? Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis co-main event. You would have Israel Adesanya and Alex Pereira on the same card, fighting for titles that they both have already fought for. Obviously, Alex Pereira was successful in getting the 185 and 205 title, and then he lost the 185 title to Israel Adesanya, and obviously Izzy has fought for the 205-pound title, and now has also held the 185-pound title in the past. That would be nuts. It would be absolutely bonkers. Honestly, the press conference could be interesting. Maybe you see Izzy and Alex like become friends or something like that. I don't know. Just going to refresh the page again. Or it does seem like Leon versus Bilal is locked in. I mean, we haven't seen Bilal crying out for a title shot for a long time now. which kind of infers that maybe he's got one, because he used to tweet like a madman, asking for a title shot on Twitter all the time. We haven't seen that in a while. Maybe what they're doing, like, this could sound crazy and insane. I actually feel like this could be actually what they're gonna do. Maybe they do Bilal versus Leon in Brazil as the main event, and then have Alexandre Pantoja versus someone in the co-main event, because I will be honest, I love Pantoja. Pantoja is one of my favorite fighters. I'm so happy that he's the champion. He's not a big enough name to headline a pay-per-view, in my opinion. I mean, I can't really think of any other real option that they have to headline this card aside from Pantoja, unless they're kind of relying... No, Charles Oliveira's fighting at 300. They can't do Charles Oliveira as the headliner. So, yeah, I wonder what's going on. I don't think Pantoja versus anyone is big enough. I know you could do Pantoja versus Moreno, but Pantoja's already beaten Moreno 3 times. Do we need to see it again? Probably not, to be honest with you. But yeah, this is a great fight. I'm very happy about it. This is a fight that I actually predicted would be the 300 main event a long time ago, until they announced 301. As soon as they announced 301, I thought, you know what? It's in Brazil. Alex Pereira is from Brazil. He probably wants to fight in Brazil. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on the fight. I love the fight. I do think Alex Pereira wins. There are a lot of people out there, though, that think Hill wins, which makes it interesting. It's a striking fight. It's a fight between 2 stars. I mean, Alex Pereira is an absolute superstar. Glory Kickboxing Hall of Fame. No doubt he'll be in the UFC Hall of Fame, although he's only fought like 7 times in the promotion. He will be in the UFC Hall of Fame. I genuinely believe it. He's a double champion. You know, he beat Israel Adesanya. He beat Sean Strickland, who became a champion. He beat Yuri, a former dominant champion. He beat Jan, a former champion. I think Pereira, yeah, I think Pereira's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And I think he's already in the Glory Kickboxing Hall of Fame. So who better to have headline 300? No one. And Jamahal Hill, he's a big name in his own right, a former champion, big upset over Teixeira, knocked out Thiago Santos, knocked out Johnny Walker in hilarious fashion. I need to watch that again. Fraud checked Jimmy Crute before we found out Jimmy Crute actually is a fraud, and lost to Paul Craig because he broke his arm, which is really unfortunate, to be honest with you. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm sure some people will probably find a way to be disappointed, but as someone who has been incredibly critical of this card, and has been incredibly critical of the potential main events that we were seeing, this is much better. I like this one a lot. And it's also worth noting as well, this one is none of the main events that Ariel Helwani mentioned. So maybe this is another move from the UFC to saying, hey, Ariel Helwani, your sources are incorrect. Because if you guys don't know, Ariel Helwani, I believe, is banned from the UFC in some sort of way. I don't know. And the UFC and Dana White always do stuff to spite Ariel Helwani, which is kind of funny, but it's also kind of sad because Ariel is a reliable news source for a lot of information. But I guess maybe he was just told stuff that probably was true, that the UFC probably just changed their mind on last minute, which is brutal, especially when a card this big. Yeah, I'd love to see Bilal versus Leon co-main event. Izzy versus DDP co-main event is like the best thing you could possibly do. I know Gaethje versus Holloway's the co-main event there, but come on, like we can do better than the BMF bout. Like, that's just... Anyway, I won't get into it or else I'll get angry. I'll see you guys in the next one.